I want to hit two things that I believe are at the heart of this. The first one is smaller, but it's certainly not insignificant. And the second one, I think, is the real biggie that I want to hit. So first, the slightly smaller but still significant one. That is the issue of job design. Job design. So we hear too often in the published reports that staff are being measured on aspects of their job or KPIs that actually have nothing to do with the organisation's strategy. In other words, they have no real link to the organisation's overall business performance. Now here's the thing, taking away the performance appraisal isn't going to take that away, because what you've got is you've got jobs that are misaligned to the organisation's strategy. Okay? This is an issue of job design. Now we also hear of performance measures that are only subjective. In other words, there's no objective measure as to what a good job looks like and doesn't, that the employee and the manager can sit down and they can look at it together and go, well, here's what the data says. And it's really obvious to everyone. Instead, it's too subjective and it's subject to just one person's judgment. And I might see it differently to my manager. They might see it differently to me. Who's right? Who would know if there's no objective measure? So when jobs are well designed in an organisation, a few things happen. If you put together all of the jobs in the organisation, that should equal the organisation's strategy. If everything is aligned properly, the sum total of all the jobs that are done should equate to the organisation's strategy. Therefore, if you put all the KPIs together in the organisation, that should be the business's KPIs. So if employees are being measured on KPIs that have nothing to do with the overall business performance, they're the wrong KPIs. That's not the fault of the performance appraisal, that's the fault of the job design. When a job is designed well, the job itself actually gives you the feedback. So the employee doesn't have to wait for the annual performance appraisal to know whether they're doing a good job or not. The job itself gives them the sense of feedback. It gives them the idea of whether this is happening well. Okay? And that leads to, there's no surprises, there's no gotchas at performance review time, at performance appraisal time, because the data is really obvious, the data is really clear, and I'm really clear what a good job looks like all the way through the year. The other thing that happens when jobs are designed well is we don't have the situation, which is all too common, where performance appraisals are based on just what the manager can remember of the employee's performance. And more often than not, that's just the past 6 weeks. That's what the data tells us. Just the past 6 weeks. So an employee's entire year and their success over the entire year is being based on just what a manager can remember over the past 6 weeks. And we wonder why we think the system's broken. But again, this is an issue of job design. And this is where really good HR departments can add some significant value to the organisation in helping line managers, frontline managers, and even senior leaders absolutely get this part right. So that's the first place I think we need to take aim at, is this area of job design. That was the smaller one, but still significant. The second one, and really I think this is the absolute big one, this is the key, and that is, this is an issue of leadership. There's John Maxwell, famous author around leadership, that said everything rises and falls on leadership, and I don't think it's any different in this particular area. I have seen slightly above average managers do a pretty reasonable job with a fairly mediocre performance management and appraisal process. Okay? It's not as much about the appraisal process, even though that could always do with some fine tuning, as it is about the quality of leadership that's being exercised, not just in the performance appraisal, but right throughout the entire year. Some of the data, again, tells us that around 70% of leaders in Australia and New Zealand are rated by their staff and peers as more likely to reduce people's productivity rather than enhance it. Okay? So we have a leadership capability problem. Is it any surprise that that capability problem is spilling over into the performance review process? So I want to suggest, if the appraisal meeting is awkward, I could just about guarantee you that that leader has not been having the right conversations and the continual conversations about performance all through the year. Okay? It's not as much about that hour or so where you have the performance discussion, it's about what's been happening throughout the entire year. Leaders do two really key things. It's not the only things that leaders do, but specifically in this area, leaders do two really key things. The first is they create clarity. Leaders create clarity, especially around what a good job looks like and around what is expected of them. When the leader makes that absolutely clear, whether or not the job design is right, when the leader makes that absolutely clear, the appraisal process is a whole lot easier because everyone knows exactly what a good job looks like, and most people have a pretty good sense as to whether they're measuring up to it. We all have a few blind spots, but most people have a pretty good sense of whether they're measuring up to it. So leaders need to create clarity around what a good job looks like and what is expected of them. And the second thing is leaders create safety. Safety. In other words, when there is a problem, it's safe for us to explore what is that went wrong. Let's diagnose it accurately. What can we learn from that? And in some cases, how can we fix that? Leaders create that sense of safety so people don't walk away feeling punished. When people feel punished, their energy goes towards covering their backsides rather than getting results. When leaders create safety, people's energy goes towards delivering results, and that's what we want. So to me, these are the top two problems. There's the issue of job design, and then there's the big issue of leadership, the quality of leadership that is being exercised in our organisations. I think these are the two top things that are causing us to think that our performance appraisals are just not worth it. To me, yeah, I think the appraisal process can do with some work. I think, at the very least it needs some tweaking. In some cases it needs some complete overhauling. No question about that. But let's not make throwing out the performance appraisal become the latest management fad that really doesn't do anything to increase the effectiveness of our organisations and the satisfaction of our people and our staff. I'd love to know your comments and your thoughts on this. Why don't you leave some comments in the space below? Also, most days of the week we're talking with leaders about how to make their organisations more effective, how to create more productive work environments, more creative, innovative work environments. We'd love to talk to you too, so please don't hesitate to get in touch with us.